88 on the Berg would like to thank our proud sponsor, Ellensburg Sweet Spot.
Located at 114 West 4th Ave in Suite 102, Ellensburg Sweet Spot offers treats that are sweet, sour, savory, and everything in between.
More information can be found on their Instagram, Facebook, or at ellensburgsweetspot.com.
Attorneys can help with many things: traffic citations, criminal accusations, and arrests. 88 The Berg would like to thank its proud sponsor, attorney Mark Shumaleski. Mark's office is located on Pine Street in downtown Ellensburg, walking distance from the CWU campus and the courthouse. With over 30 years' experience as a state deputy prosecuting attorney, city prosecuting attorney, municipal court judge, judge pro tem, and defense attorney, Mark can be reached at mac1law.com or by calling 933-1-LAW.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Welcome back to another episode of Vicky'S Dungeon. Oh, Lord. Back again for another week. Sorry that I am a little bit late this week. Got held up with, a classic anthropology test, and you gotta love those, man. You gotta love those. Anything for biological anthropology, specifically a test on biological anthropology in primates. So as much as I like the subject matter, I'm sad to say I'm late today. But you know what? I'm here now, and I'm here for it, and I'm here for another episode of Vicky'S Dungeon, and let's get a hey yo, Scott Hall.
Hey yo!
Thank you, Scott. Rest in peace. What about you, Ric Flair?
Woo!
Yeah, I figured you would. Let's get into the first bit of nerd news this week. Let's, of course, get into Game of Thrones news.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win, or you die.
Gotta love it, dude. A couple things this week with Game of Thrones news. Something that I actually thought was pretty cool. Apparently, it's opening this summer in London. They're going to do a stage play based on the events before Game of Thrones, like the events that put the chess pieces in place, if you will. It's called The Mad King, and it's going to go all over Robert's Rebellion, the reign of Aerys II, and we're going to probably see characters like, of course, Robert and Aerys and Rhaegar and Lyanna, but we'll see probably Ned Stark. I mean, I think it'd be dumb if we didn't. But I think it's pretty cool that we'll see other characters that haven't been talked about in that time, the main one being Jon Connington, who is in the Game of Thrones books, but he's not in the show because the plotline he's a part of was actually not in the show, and I would argue was probably the biggest mistake the showrunners made to not include the plot line of Aegon the Sixth Targaryen. For anybody who hasn't read the books, I guess spoiler alert, but one of the plot lines is that Daenerys is not the only Targaryen claimant to the throne who is attempting to sail to Westeros and take the throne that was once the seat of the Targaryen dynasty. There's another guy who's trying to do the same thing, and his name is Aegon, and he wants to take the throne so he can be the sixth Aegon Targaryen to sit the throne, and probably be the 18th Targaryen ruler. But we haven't seen what's going to happen because the books, once again, are not finished. But Jon Connington is going to make an appearance in the Mad King play, and it's going to be his first ever adaptation outside of the books because we haven't seen him in any of the shows. He hasn't been in any of the very few Game of Thrones video games that I honestly kind of forget half the time exist. But I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying I forget about it. That's all. It is really cool, though, that we're going to see a Mad King play. But what makes me sad about it is, first of all, I'm fine with it being in London, and I'm fine with it being a stage play. I would prefer it to be a show, because it's pretty safe to say that every Game of Thrones fan wants an adaptation of some kind to come from the Robert's Rebellion era. And for those of you who don't know what that is, basically before the events of Game of Thrones, what sets up kind of the chess pieces and everything of that show is a war that happens called Robert's Rebellion, which is led by Robert Baratheon. And the war is basically him overthrowing Mad King Aerys II and taking the throne for himself and vanquishing the Targaryen dynasty. And as a result of that war, Robert becomes king. The Baratheons are now the royal family of Westeros. the last few Targaryens, Daenerys and Viserys, who we find out who they are at the beginning of the books before we find out about Aegon way later on in the books. But it sets it up that Viserys and Daenerys, because they're little kids at the time, they get, whisked off, or whatever the word is. They are spirited away. That's what it is. They're spirited away by a loyal knight to the Targaryens to go to Essos, where they would be in safety. And ever since then, they've been trying to plot their return to Westeros to take back the throne, which was, it was in the power of the Targaryens. They're the ones who ruled Westeros, this continent that's basically medieval Britain, but the size of South America. They ruled it for like 282 years, I think, something like that, or 283 years before that happened. And this whole play is going to go over that entire kind of events. I feel like with it being called The Mad King, I'm curious to see how much of the Mad King's life they'll probably show, because I feel like, I don't think the Mad King's going to be the main character. I just think that's a cool title, The Mad King, which I must say is a great title for a play, especially like a Shakespearean, just kind of classic medieval play would be cool. And Robert's Rebellion works great as a classic, Shakespearean play, because if you read about the history itself, it's just kind of a medieval war that happens. There's nothing magical or super fantastical or really anything super over-the-top fantasy happening. It's just a medieval war of just armies in a medieval setting fighting each other and, political scheming throughout and all that. There's no dragons or sorcery or anything. I guess at the end with Aerys trying to use wildfire, which is like the Game of Thrones equivalent of like a nuclear weapon, him trying to use wildfire to just light the entire capital city on fire when he knows it's the end, and that he's going to lose. I guess you could argue that's a little fantastical, but he doesn't end up using it. So anyway, I'm just kind of sad because I want this play to be debuting everywhere and for practicality's sakes, with a different cast, and crew, because I myself, being a huge, massive, hardcore Game of Thrones fan, I want to see this era of Westeros be brought to life, not just because it tells a great story, but we'll get to see, more kind of, we'll see more revealed than what we already know, because when you adapt, because, the Robert's Rebellion storyline, it's not like a comic or a book or anything like that. It's just a fictional war that we know the history of. We just know all the plot points of it. We don't know the beat for beat kind of scenes or anything like that. It's very much like, you read about Robert's Rebellion the same way you would read about like any fictional medieval war or any real medieval war in like a textbook. And so because of that, we don't get it like beat for beat. We just get all the major plot points. Like, okay, here's what's happening, here's why it's happening, and here's what ended up happening, whatever. So what makes me a little sad about it is, I just want to see it be brought to life, because we could see more being revealed. And even George said himself in interviews about it, like, oh yeah, not only are you going to see these characters like adapted, adapted out of the books for the first time, but you're also going to see, more going on in that time of history than you know about, because because this has to be played out scene for scene. So and I can't do that with like a beat for beat, or sorry, a plot point for plot point kind of war. So. I think it's really cool. I would love to see it. Just bring it to America. Bring it to America. I don't want to have to fly to London to go see this. I would love to. Don't get me wrong. I'm all down for adventure. But at this time in my life, I don't want to fly to London just to see a Game of Thrones play. You know what? I am going to NYC in March for like a couple days. And if you bring it to Broadway and it's there, I'll go see it. I'll go see it. I'll just be there by myself. So I'll be trying to find something to do. Anyways, though, also another little bit of news. George R.R. Martin himself apparently said, maybe this was taken out of context because you never know, that he is not in the mood to finish The Winds of Winter, which is a huge bummer, man. It makes me pretty sad. I'm not going to lie. Because I want that book to come out already. And so many Game of Thrones fans want that book to come out. And, at the end of the day, it is his art. It is his thing. He can choose to put out what he wants to put out. He can choose to finish what he wants to. And I'm not sure, I don't know if I'm in the position to confidently say, you owe us this. I'm not really sure about that. But I remember hearing somebody say, well, at the end of the day, it's his art. So if he doesn't want to finish it, then he has the right to not finish it, which I understand that. That's definitely fair. I don't know, man. I just hope he finishes it, man. And now that I'm reading that he's just straight up not in the mood to do it, I mean, it partially explains like the 15-year wait, but at the same time, like, man, like, dude, this book, when it comes out, this book is going to be, I hate to pull this card, George, but if you finish this book, if there's any reason to do it, just know that when this book comes out, it will be probably the biggest selling book in the world for like a while. There's probably going to be multiple Barnes & Nobles that are going to be completely, and I don't mean multiple like 4 or 5. I mean, there's probably going to be like hundreds of locations of bookstores, including Barnes & Noble, that within like a few days will be completely sold out of the Winds of Winter. I can totally see Barnes & Noble's like website crashing or whatever from it, and Amazon maybe. I don't think Amazon's website could crash, which is the high traffic they probably already have, but I rest my case regardless. So George, if there's any reason to finish this book, even if it sucks, even if I walk away from this book going, it sucked, just know that I'm probably going to read it again and again and again, like I already have done with all the Game of Thrones books and all the Game of Thrones shows. Like even the ones that sucked, I've at least gone through them a few more times after watching them or reading them the first time, because I just love that world so much. So, you know, George, please finish it. You know, you don't have to if you don't want to. I'll understand it. But just know that you will make literally millions of people so happy to get the next installment of the Game of Thrones Song of Ice and Fire saga. You know, and me personally, I want to see the next one come out and read it. And to quote Seth Rogen from the Green Hornet movie, which is a really obscure reference, but I'm going with it. Him saying that if you wrote this book, I would read the F out of it. You know what I mean? And I would feel the same way if Winds of Winter came out. I would read the hell out of that book, dude. I would read it over and over again, dude. Mainly because I want to see what happens with Aegon the Sixth, or as the fans call him, Fagon, because people think he's faking it, because he might be either a Blackfire or a descendant of Aerion Brightflame. So he might either be a Brightflame or a Blackfire, and he's really just using his Valyrian features, those being the long white silver hair along with the purple eyes. People think that he's using those features as kind of the... I mean, that's all you really need to say you're a Targaryen. You know, all of them had, you know, white hair and purple eyes, and he has those. So because of that, and also the fact that he's leading the Golden Company, which is this mercenary company from Essos, supposedly the greatest mercenary company in the world. That company was started by a Blackfire. It was started by Bittersteel, who was the best supporter of the Blackfires, there since day one of the Blackfires, the first Blackfire Rebellion. And he started that mercenary company so that he could build an unstoppable army, so that he could sail that army to Westeros and take the throne for the Blackfires. And the Blackfires are, of course, a usurping line, or a cadet branch, whatever you want to call them. I like saying usurping line, mostly because I just like the word usurp. That's probably in my top 5 favorite words. Usurp, minute, and egoistic are in my top 5, probably. I don't know why. I'm not going to go on that tangent, but you know. But, you know, I want to see what happens with Aegon. Is it revealed that he's secretly a Blackfire? And as a guy who's a huge fan of the Blackfires, I would be delighted in that. And you know what? I totally agree with YouTubers like Quinn the GM when he says, you know, taking the Blackfires out of Game of Thrones when adapting the books, taking them out of it was one of the biggest missteps, because I remember he also said in another video, he talked about how part of the reason the Game of Thrones TV show fell off really hard is they actually didn't just, it wasn't just, and I totally agree with this when I really think about it, but, you know, it's just me, so disagree with me if you want. The Game of Thrones TV show, like, it didn't just, like, turn out pretty not good because of them just running out of material. They also just adapted, at least the last book, Dance with Dragons, Or is it? It's A Dance with Dragons. Yeah, that's right. Part of the reason why is they just adapted that book really poorly. And in that book, mainly Tyrion's storyline in that book is really kind of watered down in the show, and it's just not really super well done, in my opinion. And also, you don't see Aegon in there, which is a big storyline in that, and I want to see John Connington there as well. Dude, I wanted to see that scene come to life in the TV show of Tyrion meeting Aegon and John Connington, and I think Illyrio is with them as well. I'm not really sure, but regardless, it's crazy that I'm on this long tangent now when I was just talking about the Mad King play. Oh, I know, I was talking about George not finishing the books. Well, George, I'm gonna circle it back. I'm gonna forcefully circle back. I'm forcing this circle. George, finish the books, and if it's for me, do it because I love the Blackfires. All right, man. And also, I like the Bright Flames. They're pretty cool, too. If you haven't seen the Dunk and Egg show, by the way, Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which I will get to my review of last week's episode in a minute. If you haven't seen that, you'll see Aerion Brightflame, who might be the earliest, the guy that Aegon probably descends from, and possibly Varys descends from as well, who's in the main series as well. Also, we already kind of knew this was happening, but I guess it's like official now. Aegon's Conquest is officially going to be adapted now into like a TV show or a movie. We're not really sure, but it's officially in development. Aegon's Conquest is, of course, the period in history, about the 2-year period in Westeros, that Aegon Targaryen, the first of his name, the first Targaryen, conquered the continent of Westeros and brought it all together under one king, and established the Targaryens as the dynasty that would rule over this continent for over 200 years, close to 300 years, but about 282 or 3 years, something like that. Pretty cool. I'm really excited to see it. I think Aegon conquering the Seven Kingdoms with his dragon Balerion, and then his sister Rhaenys with Meraxes, and Visenya with Vhagar. Seeing that would be really, really cool to see, of course, and I'm really interested to see it because I want to see House Durrandon really bad. I want to see Argilac Durrandon, the last Storm King, and see his kind of one-on-one battle with Ormond Baratheon. I believe it was with him. Their one-on-one sword fight. Because actually, fun fact: when they took the Stormlands, the Targaryens, they actually didn't take it via Dragonfire. It was just down to like one battle at Storm's End. I'm sure there was a bunch of other battles, but like the final battle was just a classic, medieval siege fight. Actually, no, Argilac Durrandon, made his entire army empty out of the main seat of the Stormlands, that being Storm's End. And the Stormlands being, of course, one of the 7 kingdoms that were conquered by Aegon, one of the 7 kingdoms that ruled independently amongst each other over the continent of Westeros. And I think it's a really cool spot because I like how it's just Argilac Durrandon letting his pride doing the talking and making the decisions. So instead of keeping all of his army in the castle, Storm's End, which, by the way, Storm's End was a castle that was literally built to withstand the might of, a god, like a sea god sending, storms and stuff like that from like tsunamis and ocean storms from the ocean, of course, to take down this castle. This castle was the result of, in legend, a character just building the castle over and over again until it could literally withstand the might of like a Poseidon-like god. So, of course, this castle's not easy to take. But Argilac was like, nope, I'm a Storm King, and I will not cower in my castle. I will lead my forces outside the castle and face these guys, one-on-one army. Because, he was like, also, there's a storm going on because it's the Stormlands. And dragons can't fly super well in a storm, so we'll just, we can fight them, medieval style. And that didn't turn out too well for him. But, but it's a pretty cool spot. And I'm also really curious to see Harrenhal, which is like the biggest castle in this entire continent. And from the way it's described in the books, I'm not even kidding you, massive is an understatement. This castle is so huge. It's almost overwhelming for me to read about. Like, it's to the point that the main hall of this castle needed 35 hearths. If you watch a fantasy movie or a medieval movie and like the main hall where the king sits, and it usually has like 1 or 2 kind of bonfires in it to light the hall. Harrenhal needed 35 of those, like all down the line. And Harrenhal was big enough to house or to seat an entire army for a feast. It's that big. And it also, in Game of Thrones, in that universe, depending on where you are in Westeros, the people that worship pagan-like gods called the Old Gods, they worship them in this place called a Godswood. And usually in a castle or a prominent kind of city in a region that has that religion, they have a section of the castle having it just be like a forest, basically. And in the middle of it, or at least in its most prominent spot, is a big white tree with red leaves and a face carved into it by ancient, like, kind of forest elves called the Children of the Forest. And that's where these lords worship their pagan gods. And usually, they're like it's like a forest that's maybe the size of like a backyard. Well, in Harrenhal, their Godswood was 70 acres. And so that was like the one thing that made me go, oh my Lord, this thing is enormous. And we've seen it adapted a few times, but we've seen it in House of the Dragon. We've seen it in Game of Thrones, of course. But I've always been kind of dissatisfied with how it's been because it's never been as big as it's described in the books. But I give them grace because one of the key moments that I'm looking forward to seeing is Aegon burning down Harrenhal. And he doesn't completely burn it down, but he destroys a ton of it with his dragon Balerion and ends the line of Harren the Black, who built the castle. And I'm just interested to see that scene a lot, too. So those are the main two I'm looking for. And also seeing Torrhen Stark, the king in the north, the king of the northernmost kingdom and biggest of all 7 kingdoms. Seeing him just bend the knee to Aegon without any fight. That's going to be an interesting moment. I think we'll probably have somewhat of like a connection moment there to House of the Dragon, when House of the Dragon, of course, takes place about, I believe, about 70 years after Aegon's death, after him winning the crown after 2 years of conquest and then ruling for about 30-ish years. And then he dies, and roughly about 70 years later, we have the start of House of the Dragon, where it's revealed to the main character, Rhaenyra, who's the princess of the realm by her father, Viserys I, who's the king at the time, that the reason why Aegon conquered the 7 kingdoms was not just because, just burping all the time. Before this, I ate a grilled cheese sandwich with fries because I was hungry. I also was working in a place that had good Wi-Fi. My apartment does not. But anyway, but we hear from Viserys telling Rhaenyra when he officially establishes her as his heir, that the reason why Aegon conquered the 7 kingdoms was not just because of ambition. It was also because he had a dream. And we've talked about dragon dreamers on this show. And he had a dragon dream where he saw a terrible winter coming from the north and some great frozen apocalypse happening. And that's what drove him to I need to, get these kingdoms united. And the only way I can do that is by conquering them, because they all bitterly hate each other. But hey, guess what? One dragon is enough to pretty much conquer anywhere, and I have 3 of them. So that's what led him to doing it. And I think with the scene with Torrhen Stark, who's the king of the Northern Kingdom at that time, before it was conquered, the last king in the North, he doesn't even fight Aegon, and supposedly him and Aegon, talked about, they talked it out and had a meeting apparently beforehand, and it was very peaceful. And Torrhen Stark, pretty much heard what had happened at the other kingdoms, and it's probably the thing that made him bend the knee was him just going, pretty much every other kingdom that's opposed this guy have just been had just been covered in flames, and thousands of people have been killed, and it's because they're just unbeatable, these dragons. And at this point, it's okay, the Storm Kings are destroyed. Harrenhal is destroyed, which was the house of Harren the Black, and also the Crown lands are all destroyed, and also with the Field of Fire battle that happened with the Western Kingdom and the Reach Kingdom, they all bent the knee. He's basically was okay, every other kingdom has just been destroyed, had their butts handed to them, and so there's no use in us really fighting. And on top of that, this guy is telling me about a dream he had, and that's why he's doing it. And that sounds just like the frozen apocalypse that happened thousands of years ago before the events of, even Aegon's conquest. And that's the whole reason this giant ice wall is at the north of the Northern Kingdom. It's its northern border is this giant ice wall that was built to keep out a frozen apocalypse from happening. And only really the Northerners were really believing that at that time. And so I think it's likely when it gets adapted, we'll get a scene of Aegon talking to Torrhen and him saying, hey, like, I'm not doing this because I'm power hungry. I'm doing this because a frozen winter apocalypse is going to come. And if this continent is united, along with, if all of this continent's armies are united, along with me having a bunch of dragons ready to go, which, fire-breathing dragons are the ultimate, weapon to use against frozen ice zombies and ice demons in the north. If we can do all that, along with, making sure to keep your big giant wall, built and sustained, we might be okay. And I think that was enough for Torrhen to be like, okay, not only am I going to bend the knee because I'm going to lose either way, but also this guy is doing it for a reason that I at least am for the most part with. So sure, I'll bend the knee. So that's why the North was the only kingdom to surrender without any fighting, which is pretty interesting. And Torrhen Stark is forever remembered in the series as the king who knelt. But you know what? I don't think he should be remembered as that. I think he should be remembered as a guy that put his ego to the side and just did the right thing, because that's what Starks do. They do the right thing. Sometimes it gets them into trouble, but they do the right thing. Also, let's get into my review of last week's episode of Dunk and Egg. It was incredible, I must say. It was freaking awesome, dude. I loved it. Apparently, this kind of goes inside with the news. Coincidentally, with nerdy news. It has been officially rated the highest rated episode of any television in HBO's history. It's a 10 out of 10, like solid 10 out of 10. And furthermore, it is actually it's not just gained 10 out of 10 status, it's also the only episode to ever gain that on IMDb at least. And as a result, the one before it that had 10 out of 10, so it's not the first one to do it, but I guess only one can have it. The Breaking Bad episode, Ozymandias, has been knocked down to a 9.9 out of 10 as a result, which is pretty crazy, man. Talk about Breaking Bad fans and Game of Thrones fans hating each other right now. And hey, you know what? They're both great shows. I wasn't like the biggest fan of Breaking Bad. I thought it was really cool, don't get me wrong, but I didn't love it to death. But you know what? I need to finish watching it, though. I need to finish watching it. I only watched like the first 3 seasons, but I gotta finish watching it, and I gotta watch Better Call Saul, because, Bob Odenkirk, he's a great actor. He's a great actor. I loved him in Mr. Show, which is a completely different vibe. It's a sketch comedy show, but you know what? I'm still gonna watch it. I loved the new episode of Dunk and Egg. I thought it was freaking awesome. I had such a good time watching it. I thought the battle sequence, like with the Trial of Seven, was just awesome, because of course the episode itself is building up to something called the Trial of Seven, which in the 7 kingdoms of Westeros, which at this point in the show have been under the rule of the Targaryens for a really long time. It's been at least 150 years or so since the Targaryens came into power. No, more so than that. No, it's been about 200 years actually. So pretty crazy. Since they came into power and fully ruled over the kingdoms. But at this point, we see our main character Dunk fighting in a Trial of 7 as a result of being accused of kidnapping one of the Targaryen princes and beating up the other one. He's been accused of it and has been found guilty, even though he didn't do it. But in Westeros, there's a just kind of standard human right that any, I think, person can have, at least any knight or lord. I'm not sure about just a common person, but at least I think a knight or a lord can do something called a trial by combat, which is basically, I have the right to demand a trial by combat, which basically means, I'm going to duke it out with somebody else, and whoever wins is basically the gods. Like, whoever wins is going to be the god showing who's guilty. So if I demand a trial by combat and I fight against some other guy, if I die, then that means if I'm being accused of something and I die in the fight, that means I'm not guilty. That means I was guilty anyway. It's because the gods were stepping in then. In this version of it, though, they do a far more ancient version of it, which is a Trial of 7, which the prince, Aeron Targaryen, uses to basically just heighten his chances of winning against Dunk, because Dunk is like this 7-foot-tall, strong, capable enough knight, and Aeron's just kind of he's a more, just normal-sized man, and he's also a prince. He's not like an amazing fighter, probably, just maybe not at least. But either way, to sort of heighten his chances or bring up the likelihood of him winning it, he goes, no, let's do a trial by 7 instead of that. And since I'm the prince, I can pretty much choose which version we're going to do. And it's the same thing as a trial by combat, but it's just 7 versus 7, which is pretty cool. So we see the fight play out, and they do it really smartly with with the budget, because I know they didn't have a huge budget for the show, and they do it pretty smart where they have where they mainly just show Dunk and Arion fighting, and they show glimpses of the other people fighting, and then they do a big flashback sequence in the middle of it of Dunk's earlier childhood. And I thought it was really, really cool. I thought it was really well done. I will say, I wish we got to see the other people fight more. I thought the flashback sequence was really good, but to me it was a little too long, just a little bit. But overall, I thought it was really good, and I loved when Egg just screamed "wait," to the horn guy who was supposed to blow that it was over. And he's a little kid, and him just screaming "wait," just the way he did it was just so adorable, and he's so well cast. I forget the kid's Dexter or something who's playing Egg. He's just does such a great job. He literally is Aegon Targaryen the Sixth. He literally is. At least the kid version in the Dunk and Egg books. He's literally perfect casting. But anyways, I thought it was a really great episode. It was sad to see Baelor Breakspear, the prince of the realm who chooses to fight for Sir Duncan's side. It was really sad to see him die at the end. And I mean, I saw it coming. I knew it was going to happen, but man, the guy that got to play Baelor was such good casting, and he did such a great job. And, I'm going to be honest, I think that this is hands down the best adaptation of anything from Westeros. Better than Game of Thrones, better than House of the Dragon. This just really feels like Westeros when I'm watching it. It really does. I think Game of Thrones, of course, did it amazingly, and so did House of the Dragon, but I feel that Game of Thrones maybe went a little too far into the realistic side of it, maybe, and then House of the Dragon maybe went a little further, but not that much. Went more into the fantasy route, but not too much. I'm sorry, not that much. I don't know why I keep tripping over my words. But Dunk and Egg, there's nothing super fantastical going on, but it really picked such a sweet spot where you see the colorful, fantastical aspects of it, but then you also see the brutal, over-the-top grittiness of Game of Thrones. And I think, I'm not saying anything's perfect, but I think they've done it the best out of anyone that's done Game of Thrones kind of stuff. But yeah, pretty cool, man. But yeah, that's about it for the Game of Thrones news, and I'm excited to watch the finale of it tonight, and I'll review it next week. I'm super excited for it, and also, it's so awesome that we're getting that show annually. We're going to get it on a yearly basis. And for those of you who don't know, Game of Thrones / House of the Dragon, that's had years sometimes you will wait years between seasons. Not so much Game of Thrones, but we had to wait 2 years for the final season of Game of Thrones. I think a little over 2 years, something like that. And then on top of that, we also had to wait about 2 years for House of the Dragon Season 2. And now we're close to the 2-year timeline ending of our wait for House of the Dragon Season 3. Dude, by the time House of the Dragon Season 3 comes out, it will have been 4 years since, so I guess it's not that long, but still, man, we shouldn't have to wait. Was it really 2 years? Crikey. Because it came out 2022, and now it's going to come out in the summer of 2026, Season 3. Regardless, man, it just sucks when you have to wait over a year for it. I'm just saying. And I'm so glad we're getting not only a new version of, Westeros, kind of a new show. Not only are we going to get that on a yearly basis, annually, but we got already 2 other seasons in the tank ready to go because we have 2 other novellas. And George R. R. Martin has supposedly outlined at least 10 other Dunk and Egg books for the showrunners to go off of. So at least he has an outline for them to work with, which I'm super excited about. As much as I want to hear progress on the Winds of Winter, I'm happy that we're going to see... I'm really happy that we're going to see more Dunk and Egg stuff because they just did it so well. Honestly, it's if I got to recommend any season from any of the Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon universe, I would absolutely recommend anybody just wanting to get into the universe of it all. start with Dunk and Egg Season 1. Like, it's a low-stakes kind of, well, I wouldn't say it's low-stakes, but, you know, it's just a much smaller story. There's not, like, too much over-the-top dragons or political intrigue or anything like that. It's literally about a hedge knight with a squire who's a prince in hiding, and them going on this adventure of trying to defeat the evil prince, basically, in a trial by 7. And they do it in such a good way. It's so well done. And, yeah. But anyway, let's get into the next bit of nerdy news. Let me play an ad for you real quick, and then we'll get into the next little bit of nerdy news. That'll, of course, will be Lord of the Rings news. You can't go wrong. We'll get into the whole Gandalf in his I don't know, I'm tripping over my words. It's because I'm struggling to load up my ad. I'll just play a song for you guys. Let's play a little bit of Effects Twin, and then we'll get into Lord of the Rings news. Okay. This is from Effects Twin. It's called 4-bit 90 API plus E plus 6. Yeah, that's a weird title, I know. But it's Effects Twin, so there you go. Yeah, hope you enjoy it. Talk to you in a minute. All right, that was, of course, Effects Twin. You gotta love it, man. You gotta love it. Yeah, let's get into a little bit of Lord of the Rings news. A little bit of Gandalf going for us. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, gotta love it, man. Yeah, so this week with Lord of the Rings news, not a whole ton of stuff. I mean, I mentioned the thing with Gandalf talking about, well, I meant Ian McKellen. This is me being just exhausted after a day of homework. But yeah, we got to hear from Ian McKellen this week that he has hinted that the Hunt for Gollum movie is supposedly going to have Aragorn as the main character, which, I mean, that makes sense. I think a lot of fans love Aragorn, and of course they love Gandalf as well, but I think if they're going for Aragorn being the main character, that sounds pretty cool. I mean, I'm down for that. I actually am more interested in seeing Gandalf as the main character, just because, I don't know, just to kind of, in kind of plot lines and like The Hobbit and stuff, we've seen him do, you know, we've seen him on his own, but I don't know, I just would love to follow him throughout a whole movie. That'd be pretty cool. But Aragorn would be great as well, because I love Aragorn. You know, he's hands down my favorite character from Lord of the Rings. But, you know, I'm super down for him. You know, why not? Also this week, with This Week in Middle-earth History, not a whole ton of stuff still, but hey, the company is making it down the river. They're not in Lothlorien anymore. They're not, resting there. They're just making their way down the river. And hey, it's a long river. If you look at the map of Middle-earth and see how long they're sailing on the river until they get to the Arganath, and then they get to Amon Hen, before they get to those places, I mean, it's a long time that they're on the river. So, I mean, I guess it makes sense. But, you know, that's all good, man. That's all good. At least they're on their way, which I'm excited for. I'm excited to see I'm excited to read about when they fight the Isengard orcs, but I will be sad to read about Boromir's death, because that is still one of the saddest deaths in, like, movie history, for me at least, and book history for that matter. But I haven't read a lot of books, I must say. But yeah, not a whole ton of stuff from Lord of the Rings this week. I mean, I'm excited to see the Hunt for Gollum movie, because anything Lord of the Rings I'm super into. I've been reading a lot more of the lore of Lord of the Rings recently, and I mean, I've read the first book, but it's definitely on my bucket list to read the rest of the books, to read all 3 of them total, as well as, you know, at least, I mean, I know it's really hard to read it, but I mean, I want to read the Silmarillion as well, but I know that's like the hardest of them all to read, like by far. I think I attempted to read it in high school, and I was like 14, so it was like my, you know, freshman year, but at the same time, I was not prepared for a book like that. And yeah, it's definitely, you know, they say that Lord of the Rings is probably at like, I think they said that Lord of the Rings is at like a 7th grade reading level, or like a 6th grade or something like that. If that's the case, then the Silmarillion is like college level, dude. It's like, it's literally just so poetically written that if you've read Lord of the Rings and you think you're going to get the same deal with the Silmarillion, that's just not going to happen. But it's a really cool book regardless, and I love the lore of Middle-earth, and that's why I want to get into the Silmarillion, so I can read all about Middle-earth and Valinor and, you know, just the whole land of Arda, which is basically the word for the world that Middle-earth is in. Because, you know, fun fact, for anybody that doesn't know, Middle-earth is only one tiny part of, well, I wouldn't say it's tiny, but it's only one part of the world of, like, Tolkien. It's only one part of it, and I definitely would love to read more of that. And I mean, also, there's a bunch of stuff on my list, man. Like, my bucket list and, like, my reading bucket list, I mean, just all my lists of all the stuff I want to do, it's way too big. But definitely The Lord of the Rings, and I want to finish The Hobbit. I've only read half of it, but I really like The Hobbit. I really like the book, and I really love the animated movie from the 70s, I think. And the movies are fun by Peter Jackson, so, you know. But also, what was I going to say? Yeah, I mean, those are on my list, and I want to read, you know, a bunch of Stephen King stuff, and read a bunch of course, like, finish, like, all the George R. R. Martin Song of Ice and Fire books, all that stuff, man, all that stuff. I just wish reading wasn't so time-consuming. It sucks, man. But, yeah. Anyways, that's about it for Lord of the Rings news. Let's just jump right into a little bit of horror movie news. Let's get into it. Oh, yeah. So, a few cool things with horror movies this week. Apparently, Keke Palmer, for those of you who don't know, she's a very famous actor who's been in a bunch of stuff that I don't remember. That's just not coming to my mind right now. I'm sorry. She's a great actor, though. Keke Palmer is apparently going to do more horror movies. And I remember her being in the movie Nope, that horror movie, the Jordan Peele, like, alien horror movie from a few years ago. And I thought that movie was pretty cool. And she says she wants to follow in the footsteps of Jamie Lee Curtis and just do a lot more horror movies. And you know what? More power to you. I thought she was great in the movie Nope. I thought she was really, really good. And honestly, I would love to see her in more stuff. I thought she did really, really well. Also, The Fly, the David Cronenberg movie, The Fly, not the original 1950s Fly movie. That movie is apparently getting a sequel. Apparently it is. I don't know if it's confirmed yet, but that movie's getting a sequel, and I'm going to guess it's going to be the same thing as like the RoboCop sequel that's happening, where it's a sequel to the first movie, and they're just retconning the second movie and the third movie and probably the TV show with that. I'm going to guess it's going to be the same deal, because there is a movie called There Is a Fly too, but just not a lot of people know about it, and it's not super beloved, to be honest. So, you know, I think it'd be cool to see it, though. Why not? As a huge fan of those movies, I would have a lot of fun watching it, and I gotta watch The Fly too, man. It's a really obscure movie, and I gotta check it out. You know, it's one of those movies that's like The Exorcist 2. Not a lot of people know there's an Exorcist 2, and literally has the same actor who played Reagan in the first movie, but it did so poorly that nobody talks about it. So pretty interesting. In Scary Movie 6 that I'm really looking forward to, Will Poulter will apparently play Pennywise in Scary Movie 6. And this sounds awesome to me, because for anybody that doesn't know, it was heavily rumored when the first when the It movies came out in like 2018, I think was when the first one came out. The newer It movies, not the old movie with Tim Curry. When those movies were first being talked about coming out, Will Poulter was like he was really like hardcore, like wanted by the fans to be Pennywise, or it was heavily rumored that he was going to be Pennywise. I'm not sure if everybody wanted him to be that, but anyway, he's going to be Pennywise this time around, because of course he didn't get the role the first time. It went to Bill Skarsgård, but he's going to be Pennywise in Scary Movie 6, and as a huge fan of the Scary Movie movies, I'm already just looking forward to another scary movie, but at the same time, I just love all those parody goofy movies, like, you know, A Haunted House and, you know, all that stuff. And I'm just excited to see him play Pennywise, and in that context, it's going to be really funny. Pretty cool, man. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of nerd news this week, but, you know, I'm rambling, man. I'm trying to make up for it with my rambling. But let's get into a little bit of general nerd news.
Nerd alert!
Nerd alert! Yeah, so a few cool things. Dune 3, which is in full production right now and is going to come out on, I think, Christmas Day this year, or at least in the holiday season. Dune 3, according to Timothée Chalamet, is going to be apparently the eeriest of them all and has the biggest swing in it. And I'm guessing he means like plot twist in that movie. And you know what? That sounds really cool to me. I mean, I love a good plot twist, and I love the Dune movies getting progressively darker. I know the books get progressively weirder, and I'm guessing if Denis Villeneuve is if he's going to direct Dune 3, which I'm not sure if he is or not, but if he is, him leaning into that darker kind of quality to the books being just weirder as they go, so making them not just weirder, but darker on top of that, I think is going to be really cool. So I'm super down for that. I loved Dune 1 and 2. Thought they were really cool movies. I also loved the original Dune from the 80s that me and Taylor talked about on the show a few weeks ago. And if you tuned into that, it was a good show. I mean, yeah, either way, though, I'm excited for Dune 3. I think it's going to be really cool. I haven't watched any of the Dune TV show. I tried to watch it, I think, a little while ago and just didn't really love it. I just don't remember any of what I watched, but anything of what I watched of that show, but, you know, whatever. Also, apparently, this isn't so much news, but just kind of an unearthed thing. Apparently, after the Dark Knight trilogy ended, the one with, of course, Christian Bale playing Batman and Christopher Nolan directing the movies, apparently, it was, I think they tried to greenlight it or something like that, a Robin TV show that was going to essentially take place after the third movie, because the guy in the third film who was going to be, who's apparently the successor to Batman by the end. It's strongly implied that he is the successor to Batman. He was basically just going to be like a Nightwing character. They tried to do a TV show of him that took place after the third movie, and apparently Christopher Nolan shot it down and was like, "No, the story's just done. I don't think it makes sense to do a series based on the Robin guy." And honestly, that's fair. I think it's totally okay because I don't know, just the idea of it continuing on after the Christian Bale Batman retires. I don't know. I don't see it really happening. Maybe he'll come back from like a cameo in some kind of multiverse movie, but I'm fine with that trilogy ending where it is. That's all, But anyway. Also the Robin, I'm sorry, no, I don't know why I said Robin again. I'm just really tired. That's all it is, man. I'm fighting the urge to get coffee. The Ender Dragon from Minecraft, which is of course the final boss. Minecraft's set up in a way where you can play the game forever by just like exploring and building and whatever you want to do. You can do that forever if you want to. But if you do want the game to like end, there is a way to do it, and you can go fight the Ender Dragon. And if you can fight and defeat the Ender Dragon, the video game, it ends. It ends, and you have to just start a new world. So apparently the Ender Dragon is going to maybe appear in the sequel to the Minecraft movie. I would love to see that. That'd be fun. I had fun watching the first Minecraft movie. I remember I watched it in my apartment over Christmas break when I just had nothing to do one day. I was like, yeah, I'll just watch this one. And I had fun. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a good movie. It was a movie that made me just go, woo! Because I thought it was a good time. I thought it was a fun movie. It was a movie that was just full of
positive energy
because it was a good time. It was a good time. Oh, man. Tommy, what did you think of that movie? Did you think it was good, bad, like kind of okay? Like what did you think of it?
Pretty good.
Pretty good? You say everything's pretty good, man. All right, fair enough. What'd you think, Prison Mike?
This is freaking awesome!
Just spamming I feel like there's always a moment every episode where I just spam the sound bites. Let's just do another one.
Give me it.
Why not? Because at the end of the day, at Vicky's Dungeon, it's all about
rock and roll!
But yeah, I had fun watching the Minecraft movie. I thought it was really cool. And I would love to see a second one. And I just didn't love like the musical aspects, to be honest. And honestly, it was fine. I just didn't love the main villain. That's what it was. I didn't love the main villain, but it's whatever. Hey, maybe the Ender Dragon will be the main villain in some way. Might be kind of cool. In other news, Zack Snyder has released another image of Batman. Like he's just posted another photo of the character, like from wherever he got it. And I think it's just, people are saying it's just him pushing it to try to get his own Batman movie made. And you know what? I'd be down for it. I'd be down to see it. Like, why not? I didn't love him choosing to have the Batman kill, but maybe he'll make it work this time. I don't know. I'm excited for it if it happens. I loved Ben Affleck as Batman, and I loved how he looked as Batman. I think Zack Snyder, he definitely could have done better with those movies, but maybe he'll do good this time. A lot of people agree that, okay, the Zack Snyder superhero universe definitely was not great, but if there's anything we should have gotten from it that we didn't get, it was a solo Batman movie, because that Ben Affleck version of Batman was, freaking killer, dude. And he really was. As much as I didn't like that the Batman killed, everything else that he was doing was awesome. So maybe this is, I remember hearing somebody say about the Michael Keaton Batman that killed, that maybe had that Batman continued on with Batman being played by Michael Keaton and Tim Burton still in charge of it all after Batman Returns. If Tim Burton did Batman Forever, and I guess Batman and Robin with that too. Some people have said, maybe the reason why Batman is killing in the first one and the second one is maybe Tim Burton was considering down the line in the third film that he would have done Batman Forever, if he'd done that movie, that he was considering having Batman starting off as a superhero who kills, and then he learns the importance of not killing. And I think that makes sense. I think that makes a good amount of sense. I'm not saying it's the better way to go, but at the same time, I do feel that a story of Batman where he becomes a vigilante and he kills a few people in the first, kills a few criminals in the first part of his career, and then he finds out this isn't the way, I can't kill, and then he starts to not kill. I like that story, and it at least works. So maybe Zack Snyder will do the same with this. I hope he does, because I'm going to tell you something, man. If he keeps making Batman kill, I'm just going to walk out of that movie just thinking 2 words for Zack Snyder. Suck it! But you know what?
That's life.
That's life. It happens, man. If he makes it and Batman Kills, I'll still watch it. X-Men reboot is also getting filmed this year by the MCU. I'm excited. I'm happy to see it. I love the X-Men. Definitely, aside from the Justice League, my favorite superhero group. I mean, I hope the MCU does it well. I mean, I know it's kind of in a weird spot right now, the MCU, but I'm hopeful. I'm just so curious how they're gonna top or who they're gonna cast as Magneto and who they're gonna cast as, of course, Wolverine. I don't know. It's hard to replace the people who've already played those characters. But I'm a huge fan of Magneto, and I'm totally fine with somebody new playing him, and same with Wolverine. And also, I want to see a new Storm. I want to see a whole new cast of actors play these characters, to be honest. As much as I think Hugh Jackman's amazing as Wolverine, and I think Ian McKellen is amazing as Magneto, and just everybody. And also, like, Halle Berry is literally Storm to me. Like, when I think of Storm, I think Halle Berry Storm. I'm just going to be honest. It may not be because of a crush, but I'm going to just say, even if I didn't have a crush on Halle Berry a little bit, I would be, I would still think she was Storm, because she was the first version of Storm that I saw, and she was, and aside from Quicksilver, Storm is my favorite X-Men, and she's probably my number 1 favorite, maybe. But you never know. Hey, Halle Berry, come on the show. Oh man, that's not gonna happen. Oh Lord. Anyway, this is how I would feel if she came on the show.
She's freaking awesome.
That's how it would make my decade. It would make my life right there, man. Anyways, so let's play a few ads, and then we'll get into my review of this week being the 1994 low-budget, weird, but very surreal, it's not that interesting, but really weird and surreal and just really out there, movie Funny Man from 1994. Let's just play a couple ads for you, and then we'll get right into it. I'll talk to you in a minute.
Royal Junction Indian Cuisine and Bar is a proud sponsor of 88-1 The Berg.
Royal Junction is an Indian family-style restaurant located on the first floor of the 420 building at 420 North Pearl Street, right next to the Clymer Museum.
They're now offering a new menu with late-night bites after 10 p.m. and are open Monday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. If you would like to find out more or place an order, you can visit their website at rjellensburg.com or by calling them at 509-201-1012.
88-1 The Berg would like to thank our proud sponsor, Happy's Market.
Happy's Market is a convenience store located at 207 West University Way in downtown Ellensburg.
They are now open 24 hours a day.
Happy's offers a variety of food options such as their breakfast burritos, pizza, and Chester's chicken.
If you'd like to find out more, Happy's can be reached at 509-925-3500. 88-1 The Berg would like to thank our proud sponsor, Ellensburg Central Transit.
Operating 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., Ellensburg Central Transit is Ellensburg's public transit service.
Stops include Fred Meyer, Safeway, The Verge, and Brooklane Village.
All buses have bike racks and are ADA accessible.
For bus routes, stops, and pickup times, the transit app is available for download.
More information can be found on their website at centraltransit.org.
All right, that was, of course, the ads. You gotta love it, man. But yeah, let's get into it, man. Let's get into the review this week of a movie that I've loved for many years, a movie called Funny Man from 1994. I thought it fit the vibe of the show pretty well because it's this obscure, surreal clown horror movie from the 90s, and it's low budget, and it's pretty interesting. It's about a family where their father wins a poker game, and in the poker game, he wins like a house, like a big old mansion that his family can just move into. And he wins it from, of course, a character played by Christopher Lee, which I guess on the topic of Lord of the Rings and horror for that matter, and nerdiness as well. Of course, Christopher Lee being the actor who played Saruman the White, the wizard in Lord of the Rings, the wizard who turns evil and is pretty much the villain of the second film and book of the trilogy. The main villain, at least, and honestly, sort of the villain of the first one. I mean, Sauron is the villain of the whole trilogy, but he's the overarching or whatever. He's the villain overall, but we don't get the pure emphasis on just Sauron until the third movie. Like, we get a lot of him in the first one, and we get a good chunk of him in the second one, but all the focus of like who the villain is goes purely into Sauron and the Witch King in the third movie. While the first movie is kind of Sauron / Saruman, and then the second one is like Saruman with like a good chunk of Sauron, and the third one is like mostly Sauron with like a bit of the Witch King from at least like the Minas Tirith battle. And I mean that's just because we see that, you know, Sauron in terms of like kind of cinematic structure, he's sitting in this tower the whole time. He's like the Emperor from Star Wars. Like the Emperor is the villain of Star Wars, but he's sitting in the Death Star the like entire time. And so you can't do that for a 3-movie arc. So that's why you have Darth Vader as the bad guy in the first one, and that's why you have Darth Vader / the Emperor in the second one, and then just the Emperor in the third one. So pretty interesting. But anyway, of course, Christopher Lee plays Saruman the White, the wizard who turns evil in Lord of the Rings. He, of course, plays Dracula in the Hammer horror films for all the horror fans. And for all the general nerd fans, he's not just Saruman, but he's also the Star Wars character Count Dooku, the Jedi Master who turned evil, not for the sake of evil, but he turned to the dark side because he disagreed with a lot of the Jedi Order and felt it was better for him to embrace the dark side. He was also manipulated by Darth Sidious, who's known as the Emperor, goes on to be the Emperor. Anyway, he's a pretty interesting character, Count Dooku. And when I was a kid, I thought he was just some like evil guy with a cool like curved lightsaber hilt, but no. I mean, he is actually, but you know, as you get older, your kind of view of certain characters evolves. But anyway, he of course plays the guy who owns the house that is haunted by the Funny Man, who's not so much this clown. He's more like this goblin, weird magical warlock that's dressed in like this jester outfit. And it's a pretty interesting movie because you have this guy playing him who has a very thick, I think, Northern English accent. It's very, very thick. It's very much like I guess they say like a Cockney accent. And it's a very thick English accent. It's one of those that if he spoke really fast, it'd be hard for me to understand it at least, which is really interesting to me at least. But he plays the Funny Man in this movie, and he does a really cool job. He plays this just sadistic, like interdimensional goblin warlock jester, and he does a really cool job. And the movie itself has a really interesting story, not just with him, but it's about it's about the family that gets picked off one by one. And then you have this group of like hippie / drifter people in a van driving to the house to stay in it for a night for some reason. I'm not sure how they were able to. And for some reason in this group of hippies, it's just Velma from Scooby-Doo, not someone dressed up as Velma. It's not that the character is obsessed with Velma or anything. It's straight up just Velma from Scooby-Doo is in the movie. Pretty interesting, I guess. But they also have in the group, they have a wannabe rock star. They have one guy who's just kind of there for the ride, and then they have another woman who's this very they have this black woman who has this really like cool big afro and kind of speaks in that very cliche kind of voodoo riddle kind of way of speaking. I guess it's common in a lot of older movies. And it's revealed in the movie that she was going after the Funny Man, and the Funny Man and her have like a showdown in the movie, and it's really, really cool. And like a cannon comes out of her hand, and it's really, really cool. But yeah, I thought the movie was really, really fun. I mean, I watched it years ago, and I rewatched it recently, and I've always watched like clips of it here and there because it's just such a weird movie, and it's so interesting. And there's a lot of brutal kills in it, and there's a lot of moments where the Funny Man just kind of, he's able to just kind of convince people that he's not like this evil, weird clown, and he just kind of stands there, and for some reason they just get along with him, and then he'll just kind of go in for the kill after that. It's kind of interesting, I guess. There's also a scene where there's like a strip club, and and all the strippers have like his face on them, which is pretty gnarly and out there. And, you know, the whole movie is kind of darkly lit, but it's still very colorful. It definitely looks like a 90s horror movie. Like, it has that kind of 90s vibe to it, where it has, like, the dim kind of bluish lighting to it with, like, the bright colors with it. Like, it definitely has that vibe. But it's a really cool movie. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I really loved it. It's a really interesting story, and it has a lot of weird kills, like where there's one part where the mom and the family that moves into the house, she's just in this room that all of a sudden just becomes an art studio. And it's not even an art studio. It's like an art museum that has drapes over all the art pieces. And over the drapes are like really gratuitous, crude swear words describing what they are. And I think you can put together what those might be. and she's just confused looking around, and then the funny man just walks in and just kind of says like, and just kind of talks to her the same way that like a normal kind of stranger would talk to you if you're at an art museum, to just have small talk about the art. You know, like he just kind of stands next to her and he goes, yeah, this is a pretty good one. Like, what do you think? And understandably, she's terrified, tries to creep out of the room, and then he just grabs a big old club and on her head, and it's a pretty gnarly scene. And he like breaks the third wall a lot, where he'll just look over to the camera after he kills the mom and he just goes, now that's going to do it. And it's just, I mean, I'm not going to lie, he's not super funny. I've heard that's like one of the main critiques of the movie. It's like, yeah, the funny man's a cool character, but like when he breaks the third wall and tries to be like funny, it's not that great. And yeah, it's not super amazing, but whatever. The ending of the movie is pretty interesting, where you see the wannabe rock star have like this vision where he sees the funny man as a rock star. And then there's this big sequence of the wannabe playing in like a band in front of an arena. And the funny man convinces him that he was going to be in the Rolling Stones, and that he just never got the chance to. It's really dumb. But it's a cool movie. I really enjoyed it. If you want to watch a really cool, just wacky, over-the-top, obscure, weird movie, watch Funny Man. I believe you can watch it on Tubi, but it's also free on YouTube. That's whenever I look it up, it's always on YouTube for free. And I don't mean it's uploaded by YouTube, but just like always at least a few people upload it. And because it's such an obscure movie, like no one takes it down. So you can check it out on YouTube. You can check it out on Tubi. I'm pretty sure it's there, but either way, man, it's a great movie. If you ever get a chance to watch it, watch it. It's a great movie, and definitely underrated. Would I want to see it as a remake? Honestly, kind of, yeah. I think it's a cool movie. I think it's a really cool movie, and I like that the showdown between the black woman and the funny man, I'm pretty sure they don't name her in the movie, but anyway, it's underneath the house, and it's in this hidden underground medieval village that's just underneath the house in like this big cave. And that's so weird and interesting to me. And I love that. And they have this really cool showdown. He puts on like a sombrero and a poncho, and he has like two dueling guns shooting at her. And she has this cannon that's come out of her hand, and she's shooting at him, and it's this pretty cool scene. But overall, I thought the movie was really cool. The kills were fun. Like the Velma one is pretty cool, where the funny man just kind of, I think he just shoots her, but like only her brain and her eyeballs come out of her head, and he maybe punches her or something like that. It's pretty screwed up, but it's not super bad though. It's not like horribly realistically gross or cruel or whatever. But it's a cool movie. I definitely liked it more than what was the movie I watched last week? Project Metal Beast. I definitely liked it more than that movie, like that's for sure. And I honestly liked Wrath of the Wendigo, the Frostbiter Wrath of the Wendigo movie. That movie that I reviewed about 2 weeks ago, I liked that movie a lot more than this one, I would say. So I would put it probably in between those. So if I were to give... I mean, they're both 8 out of 10s, which kind of puts me in a weird spot. So I'm going to bump Wrath of the Wendigo up to like an 8.2 out of 10. And I'm going to put Funny Man as an 8.1. And then Metal Beast as just a solid 8 out of 10. So, I really enjoyed that one. I thought it was a really cool movie. Check it out. Funny Man. And yeah, that's about it for the show this week. Pretty short and sweet. Just not a lot of news going on, to be honest. And yeah, pretty short and sweet show this week. But next week we'll be back for more if you want some more. But yeah, I'll sign off like I always do, whether it's good times or bad times, man. Just make the most of it, dude. If it's an awesome time in your life, I'm happy for you and you deserve it. And hug it extra tight, savor it, drink it in, the whole thing. And if it's not the best time, you can take my advice with a grain of salt. But I will say the best pieces of advice that I've always gotten are keep going, don't let fear decide your fate, and just make the most of where you are. If there's anything around you that you can do something with, then do it, if you want to, of course. Like I was in Ellensburg. I've been living in Ellensburg for a long time. I've been living in Ellensburg for close to 4 years. I've been living here. And I've never loved the town. And last year was the year when I decided, okay, I'm going to start doing stuff with the time I'm here. And that's when I decided to do this show. And I really love doing this show. And, I also do other stuff in town. I do horseback riding and other fun stuff. And I really enjoy it. And that came from me just being like, okay, I don't love being here, but there's some stuff I can do to at least make it pretty cool. And there's probably more I can do, but I just haven't gotten around to it. But, I'm just saying, if your life is great, then awesome, man. If your life is whatever it is, you can always make the most of things. Whether it's the best time or the worst time, you can always know that, you know what I mean? If it's a tough time, you can make the most of things and make it better. I sincerely believe that. And don't let fear decide your fate, man. Always face fear. People say that death is the first and last enemy of the human race. But, I personally feel that the first enemy that needs to be defeated before that is fear, fear in the sense of not ever feeling that emotion again. I don't mean that. I just mean not letting it decide your fate alone, and sometimes fear is a good thing to have, but if you only let fear decide what you want to do in life, in my opinion, you're going to have a pretty mediocre at best life. But that's just me talking. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm always open to being disagreed with, and I would rather be told I'm wrong than I'm right, because at least being told that I'm wrong, I at least have the opportunity to become a better person through that. But that's just me talking. Anyways, though, it was good talking to y'all. Love always doing this show, and I'll see you guys next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
We're getting right back to the music on 88.1 The Bird.